cute is this place? I've never been here in events. First time in Creative Morning as well, so thank you so much, Dallas, Tammy, for inviting me over. So cool to be again present in one place with people, I think now, not tomorrow. And I feel pretty safe by saying that this is probably the most creative bunch in this room, the whole Wellington. So what I want to do is I actually want to start out by congratulating you, because you actually are the creative kids who survived. So yeah, give yourself a big applause. I never thought back in the day that actually I would be talking about creativity. I did not consider myself creative for the longest time. So this is a big honor, and this is also, I guess, represents the journey where I come from. So if you try to think where my accent is from, so I'm originally from Estonia, and my background is as colorful as box of crayons, I would say, but I was never good at drawing within the lines, so I was like diverting my career all over the show, doing like 90-degree turns at some point. But I was always very drawn to like big ideas, and I was very curious as a child as well, and as my career progressed back in the day, then I always ended up somehow in the startup ecosystem. Either I was working in a startup hub, inspiring other entrepreneurs and helping them out to do their best work, or working on a startup on my own. And somehow these communities and these cool people who make and create and innovate pretty much draw me in and got me stuck. So today I can say I probably have the coolest job in the world with probably the coolest title. So I'm the Chief Creativity Sparker at Vivica Tero, and we are a creativity accelerator and innovation studio for kids ages 9 to 15. And we do this all for free because we believe that every kid should be able to make and create and really innovate, and this should not be a privilege. So essentially what we want to do is we want to nurture their ideas and really give them a place where they can just grow and do whatever they want without any kind of constraints. I don't do justice in describing this, so I'll let the kids do the talking, if I can figure out this technology now. Here we go.
We're always told what we can't do, that we're too small, we're too young, we're just kids. But Kadri is different. Here, being kids is what makes us great. It's a connected community that's free to let us think, explore, and create whatever we dream. We can sew our own clothes. We can design our own drones. Create our own robots. Build our own roller coasters. We can make music. We can dance. Make our own masterpiece. And we can make friends from everywhere in the world. This isn't a school. No teachers, no curriculum, just a whole bunch of ideas. Kids' ideas. To help make the world that much better, that much brighter. We're the world's thinkers, inventors, creators, and leaders. We're building the future right now at Vivica.
That's what we do. And essentially what we do, as you saw as well, we're not just talking about crafts and arts, because often that's considered as creativity. It totally is, but that's more of the creative output of creative thinking. So what we are actually hoping to do is gather all these creative ideas and really help their creative thinking to evolve. So if we think about creative thinking as a divergent thinking, it's a way to look at one problem and then able to offer multiple solutions for exactly the same kind of an idea. So how do we capture and make sure it can really flourish and go well? And the thing is that in this current day and age, that divergent thinking, or thinking that you can think of an issue that you have and offer innovative solutions, is such a high sought after any employer. They're telling us at workplaces, be innovative and be creative and come up with like new innovative solutions. But yet again, we're constantly trying to be in those boxes. And the state of affair in that sense with the creative thinkers, it's quite dire, but the problem is not a new. And if we look at how kids are approaching creative ideas, then the thing is that kids are not actually coming up with creative ideas. They are making them, really hands-on, constantly making and creating, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But the search for creativity, and where does actually creativity come from, and can creativity be learned, is a quite an old thing. In 1968, NASA, the space agency, approached two doctors, Dr. George Land and Beth Jarman, to figure out like how can we actually measure what creativity is, and through that we'll create creative thinking, and for that then find the best engineers and scientists to work on our projects. So what they did is that they created this test to measure divergent thinking, which was so simple and so easy that kids could even do it. And the best thing, it was pretty foolproof. So they started using it, and it was successful. But the doctors, being scientists after all and curious, they really wanted to see like, hey, can we actually use this test and then go beyond and actually figure out how we can measure creativity, and is actually creativity something that people can learn in the later stages in life, or are we born with it? And what they did is they gave the same test, because being that simple, to kids, 5-year-olds at first, 1,600 to be precise. Then what they did, they retested the same kids 10 years later. But then they retested the same kids when they were in age 15. So sorry, age 5, 10, and then when they were 15. And then they did a whole heap of studies with over 25-year-olds. So over 1 million people took part of that study over the course of time. And what they actually learned was quite astonishing. Kids doing the test when they were age 5 were scored absolute creative geniuses. They were so free in their divergent thinking, and they were able to come up with ideas that were beyond everyone's expectation. Now, when they became age of 10, what happened? That only 30% of the same lot of kids were able to score as high. In the age of 15, this had gone down even more, so only 12% were scored high. And by the age of 25, well, there's a very small percentage of creative adults, hence you are the kids who survived. And what they actually concluded from that study was that creative thinking has been unlearned. We've actually all born as creative geniuses as children, and now when we go through our linear systems, a school system that gives us the carbon copy of knowledge and tries to put us all in the same box, then essentially what we do is we unlearn our creativity. And that's the problem that is a huge issue, because if we think about our current world and our current state that we're in, then there are very few problems that have just one solution, or there are very few questions that have a single right answer. So actually, if we want to succeed in the real world, we need to be creative, and we need to have those creative brains firing and coming up with the different solutions. So how do we actually keep the child in us alive. And there have been a few different studies that have been researching for that, and there might be hope. So let's look at the process of the real creative geniuses, the 5-year-olds, because I think they might have their clues for us. So how do kids work? It's called something that is a creative learning spiral, which is also referred to as never-ending learning, essentially never-ending learning of being creative. So first thing what kids do is they imagine, and we all know that kids have freaking amazing imagination and really wild, right? So if we look at the kids, like 5-year-olds, and they're in kindergarten and they all go together, and let's say they're starting to play with wooden blocks on the ground. You know, they're like, "Whoa, what are we going to do?" And they just imagine some kind of a story, and what they then do, they usually like tell a story. And let's say they're starting to build a castle for the princesses and princes from these wooden blocks. So then they start creating. They actually go hands-on creating. It's not about let's plan this out, guys, efficiency, which blocks go where, you know, how can we build the biggest castle. It's all about let's just imagine and let's make and see what's going to happen. And then they create and make, and they all together, hands-on, the blocks are flying everywhere. And they don't judge each other from the ideas. They don't question if this idea is cool or not. They just do it because why not? You know, why not? What happens next is they play. They have actually fun with their creative stuff that they do. They don't worry about like, oh, like what is the outcome of this. They just really have fun. They indulge in the process. They tell the stories to each other. They share what they've just been doing, and they really enjoy playing with each other. And kids are so much less judgmental to each other and their peers, so that makes them really flexible and really responsive. But then when the kids do their castles, you know, and they build it higher and higher and higher, and then the more princesses maybe move in, and more creatures move in, then potentially the tower will collapse. So they're like, oh, tower collapses. So what the kids usually do back then is they just reflect. And adults have to be way more deliberate in the process of reflecting. We actually have to step back and be like, okay, let's think, what do we do? But kids do it very progressively, let's say. They see what went wrong, and what they do then is like, okay, let's build another castle. And let's build this time the castle a little bit wider because we need to have more princesses moving in, and that tall tower that just built actually collapsed. So let's build something that we can have more and more kids moving in. So essentially, that kind of a creative learning spiral, creative learning spiral, is something that we as adults all have inherently in us, and that's the kind of a spiral that going in schools and going through the school system, or even today at work, is quite hard to maintain because our work, everything is very time bound. So if you look very closely and you've done your design thinking courses back in the day, then actually that draws a very lot of inspiration from the design thinking. So the design thinking key tools are actually teaching us something that we as kids already had very inherently in us. But because you guys are the creative people in this room, so I'm going to turn now the tables around, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you all into this discussion, because I would like to know, how have you kept your creative genius alive, and what are the things that you maybe do in your everyday life to feed into that kind of process, even maybe if it's subconsciously. So, do you want to help me to facilitate this?
Cool. So, what we're going to do is, everybody, turn to the person next to you. We'll give you a couple of minutes, have a chat. How do you inspire your creative genius? How do you bring it out in others? Let's get going. Meet a neighbour if you don't know them already. Cool. Let's go. All right. Cool. So, we're back. What I want to do now, there was heaps of really good chat going on. It was actually really interesting to watch. This group over here kind of took a real structured approach and sort of went around in a wee circle, and this one was a lot more flexible and just a little bit more yarny. It was really cool. It was so interesting to see how people just took it in slightly different directions. But what I want to do right now is, rather than you just sort of repeat your own thing again, it'd be really cool to hear, just to share with the groups, if there were any ideas that somebody else had that you really liked, that you might want to share with us, reflect with us, anything like that?
You should approach your problem, but close your eyes and draw it. So somebody said that they would design a building with their eyes closed, and I thought that's a really awesome approach.
Designing a building with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Interesting. What was the motivation behind that? Like just to not be bound by sort of what's around you, or whose thinking was that one?
I think because it's one of those things where you sit at a screen and like design a building and you get so like wrapped up in all of the restraints and all this kind of stuff, and even now and again it's just like turn your screens off, close your eyes, and then draw it again. You have to redesign it. So it just makes the team a bit more, just a little bit less, feel less restrained.
Yes.
What we're doing. So
Awesome. Just releasing some of those inhibitions. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, both of you. Was there anyone over on this side that wanted to share an idea? You can share your own idea if you just thought it was that fantastic. I heard some really cool chat on this side.
Yep. There was one that I heard that I just thought had good practical one that I might steal, like going out with your team once a week for like a creative catch up, whether it's at a cafe or go to an art exhibition or whatever. I was like, I should introduce that idea to my team.
That's really cool. Yeah, just like get out of your space and like actually set aside that time intentionally. Oh, I love that. Big fan. Anyone else got something burning now that we've got been thinking about? Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my ideas. It's like creating something, like exploring. Like a kid, you go and see things and you're like, oh, why should I not draw this person sleeping here? Even if the outcome is bad, like why should I not try? And just keep doing it and not judge the final, just have fun with it.
Yeah, that's really cool. And like no spoilers for the rest of the year. But we have been talking to one of our future speakers, and like that's kind of an area that they play in quite a lot. Is like people as adults, you're like, I don't want to do this thing because like I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly. And they're like, so what? Like just do it because it's how you're feeling, it's what you're seeing. Like just make that happen, like make that space for it. That's super cool. Yeah, love it. Fantastic. So we have one more. Round us off.
There was one more, which was someone had the idea of just delivering under time pressure, so you're not allowed to think, you just got to like do it.
Just get it done.
So
just get it out.
Yeah.
First best idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. So, should we open it up for some Q&A?
Yeah.
Anybody have some... Oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to thank you all for sharing. I was listening and it was so cool. I was like, yes, these are all the cool ideas, and you guys sharing it with each other as well is so wonderful. And there's so much, to your point, there's so much cool research. Is like, okay, where does the magic actually happen? And because we often get like very much engraved in what we do, and we're so like focused down. Was actually, if we get it like really wild and like learn from different disciplines and just try it out, that's where the magic starts happening.
Yeah. Here we go. Yes, thank you for sharing, and I'm sure that was quite uncomfortable, a little bit scary for some of you. Please come back. I'm not trying to scare you away. Cool. Anyone got any burning questions for Kadri after hearing a little bit about that? Yeah.
I guess we work in a creative team, but in a typically uncreative space. And so I hear all the time, you're lucky because you're really creative and I'm not creative at all. What do you say to people who are adults who are saying they're not creative? What's your response?
What do I tell it to myself? And I think that's the key problem is that when we talk about creativity, we think immediately about art, Something that you, Sven, mentioned was about programming. Programming actually is incredibly creative because you're constantly problem solving and thinking of different ways how to approach this. So first of all, coming out from the idea of that we just have to have a visual output for what we do. And the second thing is we do something with our kids as well as our adults who come and visit us. Taryn was our just funny last thing. Is we give a challenge. Like last week's challenge was you survive an apocalypse, and you have one headpiece that because of why you survived this. Now go and prototype this. And at first people were like, oh, I don't know, Katie, how did you feel? I was like scared, but then actually you saw the outcome and they were all creative. So I can't say like no one was not creative, and everybody thinks so differently. That's the other thing as well, is that people compare their creativity to others. And then they're like, oh, that's creative, but actually, like, no, I think we're all creative, right? And that's the proof. The proof is in the pudding, and you were creative once, and you are creative. Period.
Yeah, I think that's the manifesto for Creative Mornings as well. Is everyone is welcome and everyone is creative. Yeah. So it's cool to bring that out in other people. Amazing. Yes.
How did you make Vivita happen around the world?
I wish I could take all the credit for myself. Actually, New Zealand is the last country to join. We joined a year ago. Vivita originally started in Japan 7 years ago, and then a founder from Estonia flew to Japan to see it with her own eyes, and she was like, this is awesome, this needs to go around. So she made it happen, and I kind of piggybacked and said, like, New Zealand needs this, can I bring it here? And they were like, yes, and here we are.
I have a question sort of based on that. How do you find your sort of collaborators within the sort of Wellington ecosystem?
Well, Wellington is like amazing pool of so many cool people and creative people, and really good. I think what makes Wellington amazing is that people are so helpful, and everybody one handshake away. So it's like, hey, I really need a mentor for this or that. You know, the people are like, yes, let's do it. So. We always take in more, but it's been very nice, and we're so grateful for all this community support we got so far.
Go for it, yes. Oh, actually, do we have one at the back? Okay. Go for it.
And was there ever a talk about creating a Vivita for adults that are not creative?
Well, technically we call ourselves a co-creation space, so we actually invite adults in, and we hope that the kids then inspire the adults. So one of the things that we do is, we do three things. We do innovation by the kids to support the kids, but also we do innovation with the kids, and that's what we do is we take the kids and put them together with adults, and then adults tell what the problems are, and then we have kids solving them. So Reusable, one of your guests here, they've actually come to us and pitched their idea, and then kids solved their problem, or tried to solve their problem, how to move bowls around town, and they were like, oh, that's cool. So we're trying to create opportunities that potential adults who consider themselves not creative can work together with kids and see like, oh, okay, actually, there's something there. See how this works. Be a kid.
Amazing. Anyone else? Or are we all about to get on with our days?
Well, give me a shout if you do need to.
Yeah.
I'm available. Just down the road.
I
Just
do
down
have one
the
more
So
Yeah, go on.
Yes.
Where would you like to see this go? Like, because you haven't been over very long, so I guess you're still kind of like finding your feet. And,
Yeah.
So what is your vision for?
My vision is that Vivita would be in every town possible, or at least that we could go to every kid who wants. We are always say that we're not for everyone, because not some people are more into sports, but all the kids who want to make and create could make and create. So the next step for us would be probably making Vivita mobile somehow. Lithuania our Lithuania team is testing it out now. Building a tiny house is our maybe we can build a tiny house, maybe we can go around to other places, and then hopefully open them up more and more and more, so create a network of Vitas and then build the community around the world.
Oh,
Amazing. Oh my gosh.
Is it run like an after-school program or a weekend thing, or how often?
So we open every day from 2 to 6, and we close on the weekend. So we are like a workshop, so kids come in at 2, they just walk in and they start making, and if they need help, we're there. That's why we think it's like co-working, co-creating space, and we do run workshops to provide skills and show cool new mentors and show them what they could do, but otherwise, we're just like a workspace.
Right. Last one. This is the last question, and then we'll call it.
Since it's all free for kids, how do you get funding?
Good question. It's always the $1,000,000 question. So we are privately funded by the Japanese founder. Our founder is a philanthropist, and Taizo-san is his name. He's from Japan, and he has made his his luck and fortune through different technology companies that he founded back in the day, and he then started an impact fund. And because what he does, he invests a lot into deep tech and AI and all crazy stuff. So he saw that if the robots and AI is probably gonna take over the world one day, then where is this people gonna like be? And creativity is something that he really need to capture, especially some of the country school system are very rigid and don't allow space for creativity. So he started the fund and he's funding it 100% at the moment.
I'm glad you asked because I actually wanted that as well. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Always a mystery.
Yeah.
Where's the hook? Why is it free? I know, like we get this question.
I bet. Yeah. No, I love it. I love that it's just so accessible.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to make some cool stuff happen. Cool. All right. I think we'll call it there. Thank you so much, Kadri. That was
Thank you for
fantastic.
having me.